Peace, peace, peace. What it is, it's your brother Tyvon Swain, aka the Orthodox Moor, aka Brother Moore. So peace to all the fam. Assalamu alaikum to all the Muslims out there. Um, there is a topic I want to quickly touch on. I don't want to make this a long video, but I do want to make it a thorough video. If you've been keeping up with Speaker's Corner, etc., there's a particular topic that needs to get addressed. I've touched on it before, but I want to bring some final clarity to all the Muslim families and even all the non-Muslims who are looking in on it. And that is, via the verses of the Quran, are Muslim men allowed to beat and or strike their wives? Again, if you're keeping up with the goings on of Speaker's Corner, you know where this story kind of comes up and who it's pertaining to, etc. No need to drop no names. However, I would, again, really like to clarify this concept, because it doesn't matter if you're Sunni, if you're Shia, if you're Sufi, if you're a Quranist like myself. This is something we should all be able to come to common terms on. What does the Quran, as the Furqan of our religion, what does it say on this matter? Because if it doesn't allow us to do something, then we can't claim. We really don't have a claim in saying that we can do something. And if it's clear on its instruction, as we all say it is, we shouldn't have a problem coming to common terms on this. So, real quick, I'm going to share my screen for the people, and we are going to get in to this presentation. Hold on. There we go. Can you beat your wife via the verses of the Quran? And there's this one particular Quran verse that seems to be an issue. Surah 4, Ayah 34. Men are in charge of women by right of what Allah has given, one over the other, and what they spend for maintenance from their wealth. So righteous women are devoutly obedient, guarding in the husband's absence what Allah would have them guard. But those wives from whom you fear arrogance, first advise them, then if they persist, forsake them in bed, and finally strike them. But if they obey you, once more, seek no means against them. Indeed, Allah is ever exalted and grand. Now, for me, Finn, I have a really hard time with this verse when I first read it, right? When I first read it, in English, it sounds horrible. Makes absolutely no sense. In fact, this is one of the verses that kept me from actually reading the Quran. I had the Quran on my shelf for 10 years. A good Sri Lankan brother gave it to me. Gave me a Yusuf Ali translation of the Quran, and it sat on my shelf for about a good 10 years because I thought when I cracked it, I was going to find stuff like this and stuff about pedophilia, etc. Right? However, when I cracked the Quran and I started studying it and studying the Arabic thereof, I found a couple of things that were really interesting to me. For instance, I found that this word for strike them, we're talking about and finally strike them, right? It has a dual meaning. It means to strike or to set forth. And that the word here used in particular is only used once in the entirety of the Quran. And so the base form of it, again, in this word is waidarabuna, right? And the base form of it, daraba, right, is used in its verb form to mean both things. Where you can see it means, where they're saying to mean to strike them, but it also means to set forth from, right? And so if we say the Quran is fully detailed, we should be able to look at this verse in conjunction with the other verses in the Quran that pertain to it and get a clear understanding of, does this verse say to strike, or does it say to set forth from? Now, right off the top, I'm going to tell you my bias when I first read this. When I first read this and I saw that it could mean two things, instantaneously, I thought that this could not mean to strike, because when I read the elevation of what's going on in the verse, it seems like there's an unhappy marriage and whatnot. And it would seem at this juncture, setting forth from or initiating the divorce process would seem to be the most logical thing. And it would seem to be talking about that because, again, it talks about, but if they obey you, seek no means against them. Seek no means of what? To me, it makes more sense of seeking no means of setting forth from and initiating the divorce process instead of striking them, because either it means strike them. Well, let me say this. If it means to strike them, it means you never initiate the divorce process. It means you're continually beating the hell out of an unhappy woman. And if you understand the goings on of what's happening in Speaker's Corner, etc., you will understand that that's literally what's been going on. Is there's been an unhappy woman who's been continually beaten and can't get divorced. So for people who think that what I'm saying is far out there, no, there's people who actually read it like that. Now, let's get into the full clarity. So linguistic context found in the verses of the fully detailed Quran. Surah 2, Ayat 26. Right? And look at this concept. For those who swear off their wives. Now, this goes in direct conjunction. You know what? We're going to edit this live. How about that? We're going to edit this joint live. Watch this. Forsake them in bed. We're going to edit this joint live. Peep gang. Right? For those who swear off their wives, those who forsake them in bed. Peep gang. For those who swear not to have sexual relations with their wives is a waiting time of 4 months. But if they return to normal relations, then indeed Allah is forgiving and merciful. Next verse. Surah 2, Ayah 27. Now peep gang. And if they resolve on the divorce, and if they decide on divorce, then indeed Allah is hearing and merciful. So right off the top, just in this context, because it's telling you that elevation was going on, and just so we can be clear, let me do this now. All right. Let me do this now. Wow. But if those wives from whom you fear arrogance, first, step one, advise them. Let's see if we can talk. Yeah. If we can't talk, there's an issue. Then if they persist, forsake them in bed. Step two, forsake them in bed. So the Quran gives the instruction when you forsake them in bed, for those who swear not to have sexual relations with their wives, is a waiting time of 4 months. And then one of two things happens. Either they return to normal relations, or they decide on divorce. You feel me? Nobody's getting smacked up right there. Nobody's getting smacked up at all. But for those who want more clarity, let's keep going. Same surah. Let's drop down a couple ayats. Ayat 29, right? The breakdown is to release her with kindness in the Arabic. You feel me? To release her with kindness. Peep game. Divorce is twice. Then either keep her in an acceptable manner or release her with good treatment. Let me do this real quick, because again, we're editing real time. Then either keep her in an acceptable manner or release her with good treatment. Again, nobody getting smacked up. And a decision being made, one or the other. Either we're staying together, either we're turning to normal relations, or we're deciding on a divorce. Nobody's getting smacked. Let's check out one more verse for clarity, yeah? Same surah. Dropping down another couple ayats, right? And the Arabic is mad clear on this, right? Let me do it like this. Okay. And do not retain them to hurt. This is directly what it says in the Arabic. Do not retain them to hurt, right? And when you divorce women and they have nearly fulfilled their term, either retain them according to acceptable terms or release them according to acceptable terms. And do not keep them intending harm. Ooh. Either retain them according to acceptable terms or release them according to acceptable terms, and do not keep them intending harm. And again, that word for harm directly means to hurt. To hurt, right? And that hurt being a transgression against them, right? Again, nowhere in any of these verses is anybody getting smacked up. There's no way it can say and finally strike them. There's no way. It has to be the concept of setting forth from. Has to be. So let's look at it, right? Clearly, the Quran instructs us to take a 4-month waiting period once the bed is no longer being shared. Then either divorce is reached, in which the woman is released in good treatment and not retained in harm, or there is a return to normal marital relations. And so again, when I'm trying to find the proper context of how to define this word here that's only used once in the entirety of the Quran, and again, to be clear, anybody who wants to double check this real quick, does daraba, does this verb form, right? Does it mean to strike or to set forth more in the Quran? Overwhelmingly, it means to set forth. You know what? Hold on. Just because we're right here, let me do it like this. All right. Let me do it like this. Matter of fact, hold up, we're right there. You can't knock that. First time it's ever used to set forth, right? You'll see strike, 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 travel, go forth, travel, traveling, strike, 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 set forth, sets forth, sets forth, sets forth, put forth, sets forth, sets forth, sets forth, put forth. So we cast and set forth and present and strike is set forth and let them draw, let them stamp. And Allah sets forth, they set forth, and we have set forth, strike, He sets forth, we have set forth and set forth and set forth, and strike, we have set forth, Allah sets forth. Then should we take away, He sets up, is presented, they presented, Allah presents, striking, then will be put up, we present them, presents and presents, traveling, right? In that one verb form, it's more to set forth than it is to strike, 100%. And again, with the clear context of the Quran, you get it. It has to be to set forth from there because it's a waiting period, and you're making this a decision. Either we're getting a divorce or we're staying together. One or the other. There is no hoeing or humming on that joint. Like you got to figure that one out. Either we're staying together, or we're not, because we can't talk. Right off the top, it's saying we can't talk. First, advise them we can't have a conversation. If they obey, right? Obey means to listen and to understand, right? So we can't talk. If we can't talk, all right, we can't share the bed. We can't have sex. That's kind of ill. I kind of like that on an integrity level. We can't have a good conversation, right? So I definitely can't ask you for sex, right? We got something to figure out real quick. If we can't talk, we can't have sex. We need to figure this out. We need to figure out, can we go forward? Because if we can't have sex, we definitely can't have kids. We can't have a family, etc., 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 right? So we need a 4-month waiting period. figure out what time it is. And once we figured it out, we either move forward together or we part ways. So I'm going to say this. I'm going to say the proper reading of this Surah An-Hayat is this. Everything we read. Men are in charge of women by right of what Allah has given one over the other and what they spend for maintenance from their wealth. So righteous women are devoutly obedient, guarding in the husband's absence what Allah would have them guard. But those wives from whom you fear arrogance, first advise them. Then if they persist, forsake them in bed, and finally set forth from them. But if they obey you once more, seek no means against them. Indeed, Allah is ever exalted and grand. Now, I dare anybody to tell me, out of any school of thought, that that's the improper reading of the Quran in terms of how it translates to English. Minus all the brackets, etc. We know all that stuff's not there. But you tell me that this is not the right way to translate this term. Because if we don't translate it any other way, we got sisters and children and even brothers who are in situations to where they're just in continual misery. In continual misery. Because peep game, even the brother who won't divorce the sister, he's in misery and he don't even understand it. He's in perpetual misery and won't even let himself out of that. Damn sure's not letting the woman or the children out of it. You know what I'm saying? So I'm saying, family, we as Muslims need to come to common terms on this concept and call this treatment out wherever we see it. Now, I know some of y'all believe in this concept of covering sins. That's not in the Quran I read. I read a Quran that stipulates we stand for justice, even against ourselves and our own family. And that if we don't, that Allah sees it and He's well acquainted with what we do. So if we see this in any community, Sunni, Shia, Sufi traditions, again, the Quranist, whatever form of Islam you follow, Ahmadiyya, Moorish American, doesn't matter. Whatever Islam you follow, we cannot use the Quran to stipulate putting our hands on any woman. And we definitely can't use the Quran to as an excuse to keep them trapped in a situation where they're unhappy. We got no rights to do that. We don't own them like that. This doesn't mean what you think it means. This has to do with dealing with concepts of the dowry and what the men owe them. Right? It's not what you think. There's a mutually agreed upon marriage contract that the men have to recite, etc. Right? They have to get written down, etc. That they're obligated. It's a debt obligation. They're obligated. And so, based upon those obligations, yeah, this applies. But let's say one of the two is like, you know what, these obligations are not working out. Not working out. Then you escalate this. See if you can talk. Can you talk? No. Okay, if you can't talk, you should definitely stop getting down in the bed. And once you stop getting down in the bed, now there's a 4-month waiting period. And check this out and see how this progresses. If it's still persisting that you can't deal with each other, then you need to set forth from them. But if they obey you, if you can talk, right? If you can listen and understand to each other, right? Seek no means against each other. You feel me? I.e., return to normal relations. So, anyway, fam, I am going to stop it there. I'm not going to make this too terribly long. However, I just wanted to speak my piece on that real quick and give a bit of clarity. I hope I can build with some of my brothers on this later on. And anybody who wants to challenge what I'm saying, because there's going to be a few people. I know there's going to be a few people. I'm more than willing to entertain any challenge you have, as long as we can do so in a civil conversation, and do so via the etiquette of the Quran, i.e., we dispute in the best of ways, not intending harm. We confirm the revelations that come down to each other. We produce our proofs so that we can be truthful. We do not speak about what we do not know. And if we can't agree, then we just walk away from the conversation until one of us changes the so-called hadith or the teaching or the sayings or whatever that we're talking about. But with that, fam, I say peace and love.